Welcome, everybody, to the Fantasy and Frames podcast known as Shoot the Gap here at Fantasy and Frames. I'm your host, Jorge Edwards. Got Justin Taylor right here, and we're here to get you ready for Week 14, answering all of your IDP questions. And if you have some offense questions, we'll answer those in the chat as well. So stay tuned for what we got in store. So before we get going on today's show and talk about the various things we're going to be talking about, I want to give a shout out to two of our shows here, three of our shows. Again, going back to Chris Battisell and Mike Haas, who are doing the One Foot Down College Fantasy Football show. Just great stuff. We're talking about them last week. Just want to say, starting a new show from scratch and building it up. Was amazing, and seeing what they were able to do with it. And you all who are college fantasy football junkies are thinking about getting into it next year, reach out to @FFChrisB on X. He is the perfect ambassador for the game, and you all should be really excited about what's going to come with the One Foot Down podcast in 2025. The next group I want to give a shout out to is the Fourth and Frames crew. Rhett Manuel, Drew Scott, Nate Markham. Next week they got Chris Battisell coming back, so a reunion of sorts. Just have been killing it with their weekly content, getting you ready on offense for your matchups from week to week. They just finished up right now doing their Week 14 preview. So go back if you haven't already and watch it on our YouTube channel, or stay for tomorrow morning and download it in podcast form on the Fourth and Frames podcast or on the Fantasy and Frames podcast, however you want to go about listening to it. I want to give a shout out to JT, you and Aaron and Brian doing our Do Fantasy Hockey show. Just tremendous work. In the college betting show, just tremendous work. But I really want to give a shout out this week to the Waiver Wire show. This crew, this cast of characters, and this is the best way I can describe them right now. They hands down are some of the most entertaining people that we got here at Fantasy and Frames. So if you haven't already, go back, watch the Week 14 Waiver Wire show episode, or listen to it. I kid you not, 6 minutes into it. And it only gets better from there. So anyhow, like I said, I'm Jorge. JT, man, you're a little under the weather, man. Are you going to make it?
I'm fighting through. So if I cough, I apologize. Kids got sick, got me sick. I've been fighting through all week. Can't hardly stay awake. But I'm trying to get everything done, get back on track here after the holidays. So trying to fight through here through the end. So hopefully I'll be all right, and I'll make it through. Made it through both shows last night. It was a little bit of a struggle, but made it through. So I should be good to go tonight.
Very good, very good. And again, look out for JT's IDP Plays and Fades article either tomorrow afternoon or Friday morning, as well as our offense Plays and Fade articles, as well as the Fantasy Football Laboratory articles by Colby Conway. Got those coming to you before week's end. And, of course, the DraftKings DFS playbook by Keith Fleming. Look forward to that as well. I mean, folks, we got content coming out the wazoo. And I'm sure if the Waiver Wire show is listening right now, they would have a better way of describing what the wazoo is. But, again, go back and watch and listen to that show because they do funny things. Speaking of funny things, or quite opposite, let's get into some IDP news and notes. For those who are watching on X, thank you very much for tuning in. For those who are over on our YouTube channel, thank you very much. If you guys, wherever you're watching us, follow us at Fantasy and Frames. Head over to our TikTok at Fantasy and Frames, Instagram at Fantasy and Frames, Facebook. You name it, we'll answer all your questions. Like I said, IDP questions get answered on air. Offense questions, whatever other questions you may have, we'll answer in the chat. We're here to serve you all and give you the best information we can, and have some fun along the way. So with that, let's get to a few things here. We got Ishmael in the chat here, JT, with an offense question, so I'll leave that one for you. We got Tootsie Pop 6 here. congrats, Tootsie Pop, Rachel. I don't even know why I'm calling you by your screen name. We all know Rachel. Congratulations on becoming a new writer over at Football Guys. Head over there too. Check out her content coming out soon with that great group of people led by Joe Bryant. Just class act organization Football Guys is. So congrats there, Rachel. Okay, IDP news and notes. Azeez Al-Shaair, linebacker, Houston Texans, suspended for 3 games for, let's just put it mildly, that very uncalled for hit on Trevor Lawrence this past Sunday. Did you see the hit, or did you just hear about the hit?
I saw it. I saw it as it actually happened. I was watching the game, and I was like, "You got to be freaking kidding me!" I was like, what is he doing? Like, especially because I have T-Law everywhere, but I hate to see QBs and anybody get hurt. But I was like, that was the dirtiest hit. I was like, we've seen some of those lately, but that one was one of the worst I've seen in a while. A lot of times I was just complaining about this because I was like, a lot of times these quarterbacks are sliding as late as possible. And I understand they're trying to get as many yards, but they're trying super late as a guy's already kind of like leaving his feet or kind of already in the air to make the tackle. This was one of those where like he had plenty of time to pull up and he just kept going and like it just absolutely, hammered him. And that's one of those, like you saw it, like T-Law was out immediately. It like a second he hit him, you saw him, he was knocked out, complete cold. That was brutal. Obviously he has some history, so hence the 3-game suspension. I don't know if you saw, he was posting stuff on social media today that made him look even worse, putting up Joker pictures and be like, if you guys want me, he was like, if you guys want me to be the villain, I'll be the villain. He was posting all kinds of stuff and people were like all over him on social media because it was a little wild. I was like, I would just go quiet, but he is going full heel to go WWE style. He is going full heel online. I like Al-Shaair. He went Florida Atlantic. My sister and brother-in-law went there, so I followed him in college. I have him on a million teams because when he came out of FAU, I liked him. So it hurts my IDP teams. But man, that was a brutal hit. And of course, one of my buddies sends me a YouTube clip or something on Twitter, and it was basically from like 1987 or 88, where Mike Singletary of the Bears made almost the exact same hit on the Cowboys quarterback, and they called it their hit of the year and gave him an award for it. And it was wild. I was like, oh my God. I was like, this is how things changed in 40 years. They gave him the hit of the year, and actually as they're giving him the award and talking about the play, like Mike Singletary like took the complete opposite approach, and he was like, always hate to see a guy get hit like that. Like, those are brutal hits. You don't want to lay those kind of. It was like weird because Mike Singletary is known as just an all-time great guy, and even though he was a vicious football player, and he was like trying to talk it down, and actually kind of was embarrassed that they were giving him the award for the hit of the year because he was just like, I don't want to hurt people. Like that was, you don't want to see guys take hits like that. And it's just like wild how the game has changed in the way we look at it, that you go from a huge hit like that and say, in segments like jacked up to now we're like, all those are penalties and suspensions and fines. So while I like the hits and I do complain about a lot of the quarterback hit stuff and hands to the face where they call personal fouls that I think are a little weak, I do think it is nice that we're going out there and protecting guys more because we don't want to see these long-term injuries. We don't want to see guys retiring early because of headshots and injuries like that. So it was a brutal situation. Hopefully he learns from that, though he's not sounding like he's learning from it online just yet. But hopefully we can avoid those. I really would like to see the league do something and have a talk about it with quarterbacks that you like got to slide early or you got to be a runner. Like this half and half, like the sideline where like guys are afraid to half the time hit the QB because as soon as they go to hit the QB steps out. So they get the personal foul. And then if he doesn't, if they don't, they like let up because they think they're going to go out. Then they try to, stay on the sideline and tiptoe down the line for a couple more yards. They've got to talk to QBs about this. Like, hey, if you guys are going to do stuff like that, you're going to get laid out. Like you've got to decide, like I'm either running out of bounds or I'm sliding. You got to make it obvious to kind of get rid of this, because you really do in some circumstances, not this one, but in some circumstances, you feel bad for the defenders because you're like, what are you supposed to do? Just let him go, hope that he goes down, or hope that he runs out of bounds. So this one was, blatant, obvious flag, obvious, should have been ejected and suspended. But yeah, hopefully figure out a way to clean some of this stuff up, because man, and I had this talk with a couple friends too. Going with this is like, if you're the Jags, do you just sit T-Law the rest of the year? This is like a perfect chance to, like, he took a hard hit. Let's not mess with it. We're 2-10. Like, let's just sit him, because if this was Tua taking this hit, everybody'd be like, sit him out the rest of the year. So wouldn't you say the same thing for T-Law? I think so, but that might be a conversation for another time.
Yeah, I definitely have thoughts on the matter. Personally, I miss the jacked up segments. But that being the case, I like good hits. I like the Sheldon Brown,
good clean hits. Yeah,
good the dirty ones at the knees or at the head. Those I can't stand. Unfortunately, there's always going to be some level of ambiguity, but I digress. Going on though, with no Alshire there in Houston, look for Henry To'oTo'o and Neville Hewitt to kind of take over some of the snap share.
Keep an eye to see if was it Harris possibly coming off the IR?
Harris, coming off of IR
at some point. They haven't said anything yet, but I'd keep an eye on that after the bye week. That might be something that gets done.
Yep. Going to Rachel's question here in the chat. Needs one defensive lineman and one flex. Brian Burns, Keyshawn Nixon, Kobe Turner. So the Saints' offensive line is not exactly what I would like to call good. So Brian Burns should have a fun matchup this week. As far as Kobe Turner is concerned, the
Rams got the Bills, right?
The Rams got the Bills, correct? Yeah. I'm a little bit concerned about that one.
I am too.
So I would probably look to see who you can pick up as your flex option. Keyshawn Nixon, no Jair Alexander, he's out this week. Keyshawn Nixon has been targeted a bunch. Let me pull up his. And I was just researching this just a few minutes ago. So let me pulling this up right here for you, Rachel, in real time, so I give you the best information possible for Green Bay over the past month in terms of the cornerbacks. Keyshawn Nixon has been targeted the most. He has had the highest forced incompletion percentage. He's making plays on the ball. So I wouldn't fault you for that, especially tomorrow going against the Lions team that should be pretty balanced, I would say, on offense. I part of me wonders whether they're going to stick with the bread and butter of having Sonic and Knuckles do their thing and kind of take some of the passing elements out of the field or off the field in the second half, therefore lowering your upside. But I think if there was going to be an opportunity for Keyshawn Nixon, it would be probably in the first half. So you may get what you want, but I think for me, I'd rather have a better option that gives me more than just what I think I want. I want somebody that gives me maybe a higher floor, not necessarily a higher ceiling in this matchup. So that's what I would think there. Any comments here for Rachel's question here?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I'd probably go Burns for sure there. Nixon, I can see if they do throw the ball a decent amount, he could get targeted, could get possibly interception, pass defenses and tackles. He did have 6 solos last week, so that is nice for there. I am, and I'm going to talk about this as we get into the show. I am worried about the Rams D linemen this week. This is not a great matchup versus the Bills. While these guys have been really good this year, I'm really nervous about starting any of these guys up front. Now, I play some guys on the backside, but playing some of these guys up front, I'd be a little nervous about this week going against the Bills. Just not a great matchup.
All right, there you go, Rachel. Hopefully that gives you some information. If you want to drop in the chat some options that are available on your waiver wire, we'd be happy to discuss those as well. If not, just you can always hit us up at JT Orange or Jorge B. Edwards on the X machine. Let's keep this thing going. Speaking of Green Bay, Edrin Cooper, he's out tomorrow night for Thursday Night Football, hamstring injury, which means we're going to see more Isaiah McDuffie for Green Bay next to Quay Walker. McDuffie coming off of a 10 total tackle performance last week versus Miami. If you read over at fantasyandframes.com, the godfather of IDP, Gary Davenport, made him one of those waiver wire pickups that you want to definitely focus on getting this week, especially with Edrin Cooper not being good to go this week on Thursday. Something that you and I have been talking about at the safety position for the Los Angeles Rams reared its ugly head yet again. Is it Kitchens? Is it Quentin Lake? Is it Cameron Curl? It's like this rotation of like who's going to play the most box snaps and who's going to play the most snaps across the field. It just keeps rotating and rotating and rotating. This week it was Quentin Lake and Cameron Curl. I will say, though, Quentin Lake did play a large majority of snaps in the box and at free safety and slot corner. So I do like the fact that he was playing in more areas of the field, therefore increasing not only his tackle opportunities, but his chances for big plays. But JT, the fact that we keep seeing this rotation, kind of like who's getting the more snap percentages, across the field from week to week, does that concern you, or are you pretty confident with rolling with either Curl or Quentin Lake going forward?
So I've kind of been the last couple of weeks when we've talked about him here on the show. I've been kind of in the Quentin Lake zone. Like I like Quentin Lake. I like where they've been playing him for a little while. He was playing deep, but even when he was playing deep, he was making tackles and continues to make tackles as they've kind of moved him closer to the line. He is getting that box safety / slot corner look a lot of weeks. I'm still playing him. I've got him in a bunch of leagues. He's playing 100% of snaps. He is playing a little bit deep safety, but a ton of slot, ton of box. He is getting tackles. Cam Curl got his snap share back up there again this last week. But man, he's playing a ton of deep safety. And Kitchens is just playing just enough to steal some of that production. So Curl is a guy that I'm just really struggling to find room for him in my lineup unless I just absolutely have to play him. I'm like actively looking for someone else to start if I can. Now I have both those guys in one league together in IDP, and I've been searching to find someone else because I don't want to play both of them. So I'm trying to find somebody else to play over Curl, but I'm pretty consistently playing Lake because he has been good enough. Hasn't made a ton of crazy plays, but he's getting enough tackles that he's had a nice floor this year.
Love it. Now, JT, tell me if you heard this before. Tyrell Dodson and Jordan Brooks are a solid pair of tackling linebackers.
Hey, look at these two guys. I think I had Tyrell Dodson on my plays last week. Did I not? I did.
Yeah. And again, you always check out JT's IDP plays and fades each and every week at fantasyandframes.com. He does the research. He gets the results, folks. I don't know what else to tell you. Definitely a great resource for you to check out each and every week over at fantasyandframes.com. But here they are. Seattle didn't want either of them. And now Miami gets both of them.
Absolutely.
And you look at, Anthony Walker getting hurt. I believe he had like a hamstring injury, if memory serves me correctly. I could be wrong with the injury part. The point is that he could miss more time. And if that's the case, Dodson, I believe, can be safely rolled into your lineup. We all know Jordan Brooks over the past month in terms of fantasy points per game. I want to say is top 10 using Fantasy Pros IDP scoring. Yes, he's number 7 overall amongst linebackers, 29 solo to 15 assists, giving you an average of 16.1 points per game. Last week versus the Green Bay Packers, Brooks got you 9 tackles with 13 fantasy points, more solo tackles than assisted tackles. Dodson got you 5 tackles, 5 and 5 solo and assist for 11 fantasy points. So again, if Anthony Walker misses more time, I'm totally cool with rolling in Tyrell Dodson as my LB2. And if I'm fortunate to have him as my LB, 3 or flex, then I'm on top of the world. I'm ecstatic. If Anthony Walker comes back, I feel, obviously the snaps are going to go more Walker's way, so that's going to depreciate Dodson's value and kind of make Brooks the sole survivor there for IDP purposes. Would you Agree or disagree, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think so. I think Dodson's showing enough that, I mean, Walker was kind of like, he was like they had to find somebody to play and they put him in there. Now that he's injured and they got Dodson, I would kind of be surprised if Dodson gives this roll back to Walker. He might succeed some snap share, but man, I kind of feel like after watching those two guys together last week, that Miami is like, oh, I think we finally have our linebacker crew. So I would be surprised if Dotson loses a lot of snap share moving forward. I think he proved it last week with him and Brooks are a pretty nice pair next to each other.
Let's quickly answer RL Void's question here in the chat, and then I want to put this trade proposal because there is an IDP component to it as well. So while you're talking in the chat, YouTube chat with RL Void, I want to go to our next topic here. Jabril Peppers, I don't know whether it was a domestic violence situation or it was something that warranted him being on the commissioner's exempt list for a period of time.
Yeah, it was a domestic violence situation.
Well, he came off of it last week, that list that is. And he joined Kyle Duggar at safety for the New England Patriots, playing 100% of snaps, posting 9 total tackles. Again, more solo than assist. For 13 fantasy points using Fantasy Pros IDP scoring. You love to see it. You love to see it. Going forward, he could be definitely a sneaky option there, just because of the snap percentage and the fact that he's going to be playing in the box right alongside Kyle Duggar. And unlike the situation for the Rams where there's Cameron Kitchens, peeking around the corner, I don't think you have to worry about a third safety coming up and usurping snaps from both of these safeties. I was surprised he played 100% of snaps, so that did kind of blow my mind this past week, especially, he literally was cleared to play, and then boom, there he goes, 100% of snaps, 9 total tackles. So that was very impressive. For those who are, looking forward to just having some depth in the fantasy playoffs, which, folks, for a lot of us out there, not all, but for a lot of us out there, week 15, 16, and 17, those are our fantasy playoff weeks. And this is the last week 14, to kind of make that final push. And so, at a certain point, you want to get rid of your roster cloggers and you want to get players on your team that are going to provide good depth. And I really believe Jabril Peppers could be one of those guys at defensive back. Dexter Lawrence, New York Giants, left Sunday's game with a dislocated elbow, is out for the Giants for the foreseeable future. Weren't you and I talking about, weren't we waxing poetic for the past 3 weeks about just how good Dexter Lawrence is, and all of a sudden, boom shakalaka, dislocated
just crushes us because we were just somebody asked us, would you play him over TJ Watt the rest of the year? And we're like, God, it's kind of hard, but he's been such an animal. And of course he gets hurt and TJ goes freaking off. Oh man, that's brutal because Dexter Lawrence has been just absolutely fantastic for fantasy. And if you're in a defensive tackle league, he's been crushing it for you. And now, boom, he's gone. Oh, it hurts.
All right, let's pull up JJ's trade proposal here. Dynasty, a 16-team IDP included. Start 8 on offense and 8 on defense. Well, first of all, love this question. Love getting some IDP Dynasty stuff going here. He says Sam Darnold, Chris Olave, Kayvon Thibodeau for Trey Lance, DeMarvion Overshown, Quentin Lake in a mid first. Does that seem fair, or does one side need to add? Okay, so if I could get Lance, whatever, I don't care about Lance. If I could get Overshown, Quentin Lake in a mid first.
That's a toughie because my guess is, looking at these settings, and I could be wrong. So JJ, tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if this is a super flex or a 1 QB. My guess is if you're trading Darnold and Trey Lance, it's a super flex league. But let me know, because if it's 1 QB, that changes things for me a bit. If it's super flex, and you need Darnold, I could definitely see taking Darnold. Olave, he's undervalued right now with the injury. I know I've had a bunch of buddies I've been talking to about Olave trades in the last week. People have been asking, like, is this enough for Olave? You're trying to give him away. Thibodeau, oh man, he has been bad this year, even though he's got a good name. So I don't mind moving that. Overshown, man, he's looked good lately. And if he ends up being the number one next year for Dallas, I like that. As I said, I'm a Quentin Lake guy. He's just got a really nice floor. I like the mid 25 first. Man, I like that. So to me, this one all comes down to is it single QB or super flex? And how desperate are you? Or is the person for Darnold needing a QB here? Are you giving up Darnold? Or are you getting Darnold? Because if I don't need Darnold, say he's like my fourth QB, I had him sitting like on my bench for a while, or it's a one QB league, which Darnold is a borderline starter in a one QB league. To me, you're gonna go. Here's how I look at this trade. You got Olave equals a mid 25 first. I think mid 25 first is more value than Olave personally. And then you want to take Lake Overshown for Thibodeau. It is big three scoring, but I kind of like that move. Lake Overshown. To me, this comes down to how much is Darnold needed. Is it super flex or one QB? Because if it's one QB, I'm taking the Overshown Lake mid 25 first side. If it's super flex and I'm like desperate for a QB, which I've been in a couple leagues this year, I just traded for Darnold. No joke, because it was single QB. He needs a QB. I got Stroud. Okay, I love it. If you are giving up Darnold and Olave, Kayvon in this one, I like that move. Trey Lance is a throw-in. You're hoping just bench him, throw him, on your squad and hope that maybe he gets traded or finds a home at some point. He's just a throw-in. I like Overshown and Lake to me are equal to Thibodeau, and I think Olave, Darnold is worth a mid-25 first in a one QB league. So I like that. I'm taking the Lake mid-25 first side, JJ.
Love it. Thank you very much, JJ, for the question and answering our question so that we can answer your question. So thank you very much for that. If you have any more, throw them in there, man. We like to, or gal, we'd love to answer any and all questions.
JJ could be anything, right?
It could be, however, whatever, we love you. Rachel's back here in the chat. Chris Jones, Shamar Connor, Cameron Taylor, Britt, Carl Granderson. So
ask us to get one of those guys and start it instead of starting Nixon.
Yeah. Ooh. So let's just say there are two people on this list that I have as plays for their various position that I'm going to keep to myself till it's time for IDP plays and fades. But let's just say there are two on this list that I am very high on this week. So in other words, Rachel, you stay right there.
Yeah, to me, there's a couple good guys on there I like. We'll get to them, and you can kind of talk about your guys. I Taylor Britt and Chris Jones would be two guys I would definitely consider over Nixon this week. Personally, yeah. I could see either one of those guys. But I know you got a few of these guys you want to talk about in plays and fades, so stick with us. We'll talk about them. I think we got another start question in there as well, Ray.
So Poyo Lucon or Quay Walker this week for me. I never thought I'd say that this would be an easy one to answer, but for me, it's Quay Walker. The tackle efficiency just has not been there for Olukun. Coming back from an injury, just it's not there. Whatever.
Man. Well, here's the other thing too. I don't know if you saw this. I watched a decent amount of that Jags game. They've been playing a bit on the outside and rushing him, which isn't really anything he's done usually. I'm like, what? Right. And like, I saw them doing it, and I was like, wait, what is he doing? And I was like, I thought I was looking at the wrong number. Like literally, I was watching the game. I was like, whoa, what's he doing out there? And like, so they're rushing him a little bit, which is obviously you play him because of his tackle numbers. He's a guy that just eats up tackles. I never thought I'd say this either, but dude, I'm on Quay Walker on that for sure this week.
Absolutely, especially against a run-heavy team like the Detroit Lions.
Like the Lions, yep.
No, I said that correctly. Yeah, exactly. Thanks, fellas. No problem. Thank you, Warclouds. We got Summer in the chat. Summer, what is going on? Summer, I see you on more Fantasy and Frame shows, and I see a lot of people. She's here, whether it's in the Sunday morning show or here on Shoot the Gap. We appreciate you tuning in.
She's a superstar. Superstar.
Superstar. Get that reference, please give a thumbs up in the chat. If you don't, you're breaking our heart. But either way, we're going to help you out here. Trying to choose between two defensive backs. Ugo Amadi, Taron Johnson, Jonathan Owens, Javon Bullard, or Mr. 17. I don't understand who.
Mr. 17 tackles. Daryl Worley had 17 tackles for the Titans this week, which was just ridiculous. I remember looking at that and I was like, no way he had 17 freaking tackles, and he did. It was ridiculous.
That's ridiculous. I personally would go Owens and Taron Johnson. What are your thoughts here?
This is funny because I am slightly separate than you here. I'm going Amadi and Bullard. So I'm not sure we helped her at all. I'm going to talk about Amadi here a little bit later. I'm going him, but I could definitely, man, that is God. We're we're on the opposite for her, not helping her at all. What is Taron Johnson? Oh, he's going against Taron Johnson going
against the Rams.
Yeah, and then you got the Bears. Owens going against the Niners. I mean,
so for Owens, the thing I'm thinking about here is that you look at the past couple games where he's been kind of like forced to come into a more prominent role. Week 12 versus Minnesota, 8 total tackles. Week 13, coincidentally, 8 total tackles in the pass deflection. We're talking about for Fantasy Pros IDP scoring, week 12, 16.3. Week 13, Detroit, 9. One of the IDP fades at linebacker I'll be discussing just happens to play for the Chicago Bears. So I feel like he's going to be asked to help more in run support this week against the 49ers.
You know what? I want to change. You just talked me into it. I'm going to Amadi still, but I go in Owens. I like Owens over Bullard.
I will say Taron Johnson, for me, I feel more comfortable if it's a cornerback specific league. If it's just a defensive back league, then I think I'll side with you with Amadi, but definitely Jonathan Owens here for sure. Also has another question. Need 2 linebackers between Diane Henley, Blake Cashman, Jordan Brooks. Well, first of all, Jordan Brooks, check that one off the box right there. Robert Spillane or Josie Jewell. I'm a big Spillane fan, so give me Jordan Brooks and Robert Spillane here. Although you look at, Cashman versus Atlanta, that should be an interesting matchup with the running ball with. So for me, I would rank it Brooks, Spillane, Cashman. But if you said to me Brooks, Cashman, Spillane, I wouldn't hate it. It's semantics at that point. Either way, you have good options here.
Yeah, I think it's pretty close. I'm with you. I'm Brooks, Spillane, Cashman. I just think Spillane. I think he's the linebacker and the only linebacker to have, as you'll see in my fades and plays article this week. He is the only linebacker guy to have. When the Bucks offense is rolling, they're running the ball, they're passing the ball. He's going to be out there. I think Brooks and Spillane. Cashman had a nice game last week. I go Brooks, Spillane, Cashman, Henley.
Yeah,
is my group.
Hopefully that helps you out there, Summer. Thank you very much for tuning in. And of course, if you or anybody else has some more IDP questions, throw them in there. JJ, thanks for the trade answer, guys. Last question for tonight. Has anyone heard any updates on Christian Harris by chance? I've had him on IR all season. There's reports that he could be coming off of IR. Looking at NFL.com's injury tracker, they have not posted as of yet any information on practices. Actually, no, hold on. They have.
So I was going to say, as you're looking at that, I know that they've talked about whether they're going to open his window up after the bye week here, because the Texans with the bye week this week, whether they're going to open next week for him, because they have to decide if they open the window, he's got to come back. If not, he's on IR for the rest of the year. So I think there's a good chance we're going to find out next week. They won't say anything this week with it being a bye week for the Texans, but I would pay attention to early part of next week, whether he's coming back with it. And if he could go, I think they'll bring him back, because with Alistair with his 3-game suspension, which doesn't start until after the bye week, I think there's a chance that they'll try to bring him back if he can come back. I think he will. So I would definitely keep an eye on that.
And not to mention, you've held on to him this long. Like, now's not the time to cut bait. Like, just see the process.
Wait it out another week.
Yep. But thank you, JJ. Thank you, everybody else who is tuning in right now. And of course, if you have, if we're not getting to your questions fast enough, folks, please utilize your super chats function. That'll help prioritize the questions that we answer here on the live stream. If you are on X watching us right now, aka Twitter, head over to our YouTube channel, jump into the YouTube chat, or head over to our Facebook page, jump into the Facebook chat. We'll be happy to answer your questions everywhere, but the super chat function specifically for YouTube. So really appreciate that. Let's keep going to some more news and notes here. One more thing, and we've been talking about him for a while. Nick Herbig, man, just continued to ball out this past Sunday versus the Bengals, posting 2 tackles, a TFL, a sack, a forced fumble, and 2 quarterback hits for 12.8 fantasy points using Fantasy Pros IDP scoring. I think it's safe to say, as long as Highsmith is out, you can comfortably slide him in as your DL2. Is that a hot take, or is that pretty?
For me, I know it was a hot take maybe 6-7 weeks ago. I don't think it's a hot take anymore. I mean, if he's getting the snaps, you want him in your lineup. I mean, he's a mini TJ Watt on the other side. And it's, usually you're picking one or the other when you're going outside linebacker DNs. Those guys are both playable. And I will tell you what, I didn't play both of them this last week, and I've been playing both of them every week. I sat Herbig, and the only reason I sat Herbig is I felt really good about Benito, and he had a monster game for the Broncos. So he was my number one play on Plays and Fades last week, Nick Benito, and he had a monster game for the Broncos. So I was going to say, we didn't even get into that, but I was like, how many people won or lost on those pick sixes, either an IDP or standard defense format? I lost 2 home leagues where I was playing against teams that had the Broncos, and one I lost on the pick 6, and the other one I lost on the last interception in the end zone by Barton. On the last play of the game, I was up 1.5 points or something, and he threw the pick, and that got him enough points to beat me. So I lost 2 leagues on that, but I also won 2 leagues. Won a league because Benito had the pick 6 return, and then I won another league because the other guy I played had Jameis, and he threw the pick that he was beating me by a point, and he ended up finishing behind me because of the last pick. So get it and take it away, but that's why my pick 6 for the win underneath my name there. Nothing better in IDP than the pick 6. It's like the greatest thing that ever happened when you get the pick 6 in IDP, and you got to love it, especially when when you have one of those guys on your team. It's like the greatest thing ever. I freaking love it. It's my favorite.
Got Will. Will, welcome back. You are awesome. Thank you very much for tuning in weekly here on Shoot the Gap, as well as seeing you more and more on the Fantasy and Frames kickoff show, which you can check out every Sunday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern. We answer basically all your questions, whatever they are, and we keep you up to date with breaking news on Sunday morning. And we're there for as long as you need us. So we don't have a specific cutoff time. We're there for you, and we bring on people that have done tons of research that are just there to help you win and have a good time playing fantasy football. We got Philip B in the chat, or Philip the Fifth, however you want to go about doing that. What happened to Trayvon Moore? He seems to have fallen off. So you look back to his, snap percentages from last week alone. Isaiah Polamalu and him both had 100% of snaps. And we saw that Moore did have 47.9% of box snaps, but you look to his production, much like you were saying, you go back to week 11, 5 tackles, 3 tackles, 3 tackles. The high volume has not been there. I need to go back and double check his free safety snaps as the season has gone on over the past month. While I do that, could you maybe give?
He's actually not playing a ton of deep safety snaps, which is kind of crazy. He's playing mostly in the box and slot. He's in that almost 60% or more box and slot snaps. He's just not producing the last couple weeks. I mean, he had a nice little tackle floor where I think it was like 3 straight weeks. Let me look at real quick. He had 3 straight weeks where he had 9 tackles. He had 9 tackles, 6 tackles, 9 tackles, 13 tackles in a 4-week span, and just has fallen off there. So I looked at too because I was like, is he losing snap share? And I'm just not aware of it because I haven't watched a bunch of the Raiders games lately, and he's just not making plays. It's pure and simple. He's on the field. He's getting box snaps. He's near the line of scrimmage, just not making very many tackles.
One thing that is really concerning with him is the fact that he has such a high missed tackle rate with 15.4%. He barely has any defensive stops during that rate. So you're telling me a cornerback or a safety who's supposed to help in run support isn't making defensive stops. It has a high missed tackle rate. Therefore, he sees the person in front of them. Like you said, JT, he just is not making plays. I think we're seeing enough of a sample size just to see that his lack of efficiency could cost you going forward. So I would try to pivot off of him if you could and address that defensive back and or safety spot better than that. And of course, a lot of the advanced metrics that we utilize here, courtesy of John Macri and all the great people over at PFF. They do a great job breaking things down so we can help break it down for you even more. And so just there you go. That's going to do it here for our news and notes. Normally we have Money or Mirage, but quite frankly, we didn't get to it. So we're going to get into right now the real stuff that you guys are here for. Let's get into some IDP plays and fades for week 14. All right. JT, why don't we start with your play and fade at defensive lineman?
Yeah, for me this week at D-line, a guy I'm going to talk about, just the old veteran. We always talk about TJ Watt. We always, we've been talking about, feel like a lot about Herbig here of late, but a guy that's kind of fallen under the radar is Cameron Hayward for the Steelers. He has really had a resurgent season coming back off the injury last year. He has been really, really solid. Goes against the Browns this week. So they just played the Browns 2 weeks ago in the Snow Bowl. If you look at the stats going for Hayward's just been really, really good. He's been solid tackle numbers. He's got 6 sacks on the season. He didn't have a sack against Cleveland the first game, but he did have 6 tackles and 2 passes defensed in that game. So he had a solid game. He had 5 tackles, a sack, and a pass defense. He batted down against Cincy last week. A couple weeks ago against Washington, had 2 sacks. He's been knocking passes down at the line left and right. Cleveland's throwing the ball all over the field. So the last couple weeks, Jameis Winston is throwing the ball, leading the league in passes attempts. So Winston's throwing the ball 40 or more times in 4 of the last 5 games. The only game he didn't throw over 40 times was against the Steelers in that Snow Bowl where he threw 27 times. And I think that is going to increase greatly this week when they face off against each other in Pittsburgh. I think the Steelers just don't lose 2 games in a season to the Browns. I think the Steelers are going to put it to them this week. I think James is going to throw the ball a ton again. I think Hayward gets home, I think this is a great play for him. If you don't have TJ or you don't have Herbig and you're looking for another Steelers player to take advantage, I think Hayward is a good play this week. He's got nice tackle numbers inside, even playing inside, but he's been getting good pressure and getting his hands up, knocking down passes. So especially in leagues like, passes defended or batted, you get points on. He's been super solid at that this year, really batting down passes. I think it's 6 straight games. He's got at least one. So I like Hayward, especially in a defensive tackle start league. I think he's a must start this week. I've been all over him in my defensive tackle start leagues, but I also think he's worth a play in a D lineman league where you just starting D line anyway. I like him. I still think Herbig and TJ are great plays, but I think Hayward is getting ignored. I think he's going to have a real nice week against the Browns.
All right. Let me go over my play this week. As I'm trying to multitask at the same time. Apologies. I'm going to go with Trayvon Walker, defensive lineman, Jacksonville Jaguars. Jaguars taking on the Tennessee Titans. Why? Why Trayvon Walker, not Josh Hines-Allen, who's been on a hot streak as of late? Well, let me tell you. Lining up against Trayvon Walker this week should be Nicholas Petit-Frere of the Titans, who over the past month has allowed the 6th most pressures with 4 sacks allowed. You combine that with Walker's, during that same time period, 15.7% win rate over offensive tackles with 9 pressures and 2 sacks. This is a situation where we've seen inconsistencies from Walker. It's like almost like every other week he's putting up decent games, but you really have to pick your matchups well. And again, going with Petit-Frere, who's just, we talk about him. We've been talking about him for years. Just the, I don't want to say he's like not good, because who am I to say that it's a guy who's a professional athlete is not good at what he does. But if you're looking at the metrics, if you're looking at the numbers, he's not exactly helping your quarterback out. So look for Walker to have another big game this week, given this matchup. JT, who's your fade this week at defensive line?
So we talked about it slightly earlier when we were talking about the Rams-Bills matchup. I just do not like this matchup for Rams defensive linemen. I'm fading Byron Young. He had a streak where he had a sack in 4 straight games, but he's been shut out the past 2 weeks, and he only has 5 tackles with no sacks in the last 2 weeks. Now he goes against the Bills and Josh Allen. Josh Allen hasn't been sacked in the last 2 weeks. I just don't like where this is headed. Young is cooled off after being really good here for a good part of the season, and the Bills are just playing fantastic football, and people are just not getting to Josh Allen. Like Young in general, like for the rest of the season, I do not like him this week. I'm avoiding Young. I'm avoiding Kobe Turner, all those guys this week for the Rams.
Love it. So my guy this week, who I'm kind of low on, is Zadarius Smith. Since coming over in the trade with Cleveland, he hasn't really been doing that well. 2.8 points, 1.5. He got in week 11, 1 assisted tackle, 1 half a sack. Last week, or week 12, he got a solo tackle. But recency bias is what, and people like to look at what happened recently and they're like, ooh, versus Chicago, he was able to put up 3 tackles, 1.5 sacks for 11.5 fantasy points. Why shouldn't I start Zadarius Smith? Well, that's because he's going against the Green Bay Packers offensive line. And when you look at over the past month, both offensive tackles for the Green Bay Packers have only allowed 8 pressures combined with 0 quarterback hits and 0 sacks. Green Bay's offensive line has the 2nd lowest sack conversion percentage on the season. So don't let recency bias fool you. If you're in a situation where you're missing, Daniil Hunter or Will Anderson, because they're on a bye this week, don't get desperate and go for Zadarius Smith. We'll help you find different options like Trayvon Walker. So that is my fade for the defensive line. So to round us out, to recap, defensive lineman plays and fades, mine, Trayvon Walker, Jacksonville Jaguars. JT's Cameron Hayward. My fade, Zadarius Smith. JT's fade, Byron Young of the Los Angeles Rams. Let's get to probably the most, talked about position in IDP Fantasy Football. Let's talk about some linebackers. JT, who is a play for you at the linebacker position?
So this is a guy that's kind of not gotten a lot of pub this year, but he's been really solid, and that's Caden Ellis for the Falcons. It's kind of started off the beginning of the year was like, is it going to be Ellis? Is it going to be Landman? Is it going to be Anderson? I've been a big Anderson guy since he came out. He had some monster games, but injuries have hurt him. He just came back. Landman and Anderson last week basically split snaps. So at this point, the guy you want is Caden Ellis. He's the guy to have. He's the guy to own in Atlanta, and he is playable every week. He's been very, very solid this year. He's LB 22, according to Fantasy Pro scoring this year with 148.6 points, averaging 12.4 per game. So just real consistent play out of him. He's had 9 or more tackles in the past 5 out of the past 6 games. The only game he didn't get it was last week against the Chargers. He had 5 tackles, but he did get a sack. So that was nice. The thing too on the tackles that were low, you got to realize the Falcons only played 46 snaps of defense. Like they did not, they were not on the field very much. So the tackle numbers are going to be down there. Now he's got a great matchup this week against the Vikings. The Vikings are top 3 in tackles allowed opposing linebackers. He's also averaging about 9 rush snaps per game. Vikings are allowing 8 sacks to blitzing off the ball linebackers this year, and they've given up 4 sacks in the last 3 games. This is a great spot for Ellis to get you 8 to 10 tackles and also throw a sack in there as well. I really like this matchup. Like I said, he's just been a solid guy all year. Nobody's really talked about him, but he's a guy that he's just been so good across the board, and I think he has a chance to have a big week this week against the Vikings. I like it.
Very nice. I dig it. My play at the linebacker position, Jack Campbell, linebacker, Detroit Lions. Over the past month, amongst linebackers, he ranks 9th in defensive stop percentage, ranks 6th in run play tackling in terms of solo tackles. And going against a Packers team that has been very run heavy with Josh Jacobs. A lot of us here at Fantasy and Frames and on other shows, we've been talking about the way the contract situation is for Green Bay. They're not really long-term committed to Josh Jacobs. So, in the offseason, we were like, I wouldn't be surprised if Green Bay starts running him into the ground and getting as much, wear and tear on him as they can to help him succeed. And that's what you're seeing out of Green Bay's offense. Well, you don't know who's going to be the wide receiver 1 in any given week. They're going to be running Josh Jacobs hard. And you look at his going back to Jack Campbell, that is, he has a tackle efficiency when playing against the run of 21%, which anything above 20 is like super elite. He has a low missed tackle rate. He's everything you want, in terms of a linebacker going against a run heavy offense. So give me Jack Campbell this week, Detroit Lions versus Green Bay on Thursday Night Football. Hands down, one of my favorite plays this week at the linebacker position. JT, who is a fade at the linebacker position for you?
So for me, and we talked about it a little bit, I love Spillane this week for the Raiders. I do not like his partner, Devon Diablo. He has not been good recently. He's just kind of fallen back this year. He doesn't have more than 4 tackles in the past 4 games. His tackle efficiency is pretty bad. It's at 5.9%. And he's only playing about 70% of snaps. He's coming off the field a decent amount in games. He's got 1 game where he has more than 4 tackles in like the last 7 weeks. So he's just a guy that's not getting you much. There's just a ton more guys I'd rather play. Obviously, a lot of bye weeks this week, but I'd be looking for any other option than putting him in if I can help it.
No, 100% agree. Diablo, it really is the Spillane show or bust at the linebacker position for the Raiders at this point in the season. My linebacker fade this week, and I was kind of referencing him or alluding to him when we were talking about Rachel's question in the chat regarding should I pick up Jonathan Owens. Yes, you should. You know why? Because he'd do a better job at run support than Tremaine Edmunds has been as a linebacker this past 4 weeks. Edmunds has, during this time period, the 12th fewest solo tackles and the 9th fewest defensive stops. He has a 16% missed tackle efficiency going against a 49ers team that, even though they'll be down, their top 2 running backs will still want to run the ball. He's just again very inefficient. Hasn't been producing, and again, if you're needing somebody for the fantasy playoffs, if you're the Frankie Louvu manager, if you're the Bobby Wagner manager, if you're insert, solid linebacker manager, don't do it. That's the best analytical advice I can give you. Just don't do it.
That's my favorite analytical advice. Just don't do it.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Okay, that's going to wrap us up for linebackers. Just to recap, my favorite linebacker play is Jack Campbell. JT's is Caden Ellis. My fate is Tremaine Edmonds. And yours is Divine Diablo. Let's get into then our last position group, the defensive backs. And Rachel, if you're still watching, here's part 1 of answering your question of which players off of your waiver wire you should pick up. My defensive back play this week is Cam Taylor-Britt. Whether you're playing him as a defensive back only or specifically in cornerback leagues, over the past month, he has been the most targeted quarterback on the Bengals, allowing a quarterback rating when targeted of 128.6. He ranks as the DB21 in Fantasy Pros IDP points per game. In cornerback specific leagues now, he gives you even more of an advantage because going against the Dallas offense where they aren't afraid to throw the ball. Cooper Rush, if you look at his passing attempts, they're pretty high. If you're Cooper Rush and you want to have some success in the passing game, you probably want to target the quarterback who's allowing an 85.7% reception percentage. Again, for real football, not great, Cameron Taylor-Britt, but for IDP, you're going to get picked on. Therefore, you're going to get opportunities to get pass deflections or interceptions or tackles in the open field. So I'm all about the Cam Taylor-Britt show here at defensive back. What about you in terms of your play at defensive back, JT?
Yeah, so I'm actually going with a cornerback as well. And this is a guy that I've been playing consistently over the last month in cornerback start leagues, but I also think you could play him in a DB start league. And that's Byron Murphy Jr. for the Vikings. Been really solid this year. 5 interceptions. He has 4 picks in the last 6 games. It's coming off a 3 passes defense, 5 tackle interception game against Arizona. He had 8 tackles the week before against the Bears. He's been getting you 4 tackles pretty much consistently as he's had He's had 3 or more tackles, solo tackles in 10 to 12 games in 5 out of his last 6. So he's, even as a cornerback, he's getting you tackles. He's in there. You're coming in. Now all of a sudden the Vikings face Kirk Cousins coming back against his old team, coming off a terrible performance where he just threw a bunch of picks against the Chargers. I like Murphy this week. He's been solid. He's getting you tackles. He's getting you passes defended. And I think he has another nice shot at an interception again this week. So cornerback start leagues, absolutely pull the trigger, start him. I'm starting him every week over bigger name guys. DB leagues, I definitely think he's worth it, especially in leagues that give you high points for interceptions. I think he has a really nice shot at pulling in his 6th interception of the year this year, or this coming week.
And let's face it, for some fantasy managers out there, week 14, right before playoffs start, if your playoffs do start in week 15, which a lot of people do, not all, but a lot of people, you may need that upside play. Mm-hmm. There may be some safeties that you have available either on your bench or on waivers that give you a stable floor, but sometimes you need those upside plays. And I was very surprised when JT and I were both, doing our research for this, and we're like, "Are you doing a corner?" Yeah, cool. Me too. I'm doing a corner also. This is
after we always are telling like, I don't want to do quarterbacks. But again, if you're in a couple leagues like me where overall scoring instead of record is getting you in your last spot or 2 spots in the playoffs, I'm in a ton of leagues where I need to make up some ground and some points to sneak into the playoffs, and I'm going to try to play my high upside guys. I want a shot at a pick six. I want a shot where I can get a big point total because those points matter. I'm trying to make up ground on a few other guys to try to make the playoffs. So I'm going to go in with some high upside guys this week if I'm one of those guys playing from behind and trying to make up points.
100%, 100% cosign. Before we get to two defensive back fades that you'll give us here, JT, Jamie in the chat, I'm sorry. I'm late. Sorry, guys. Why? Were you at the strip club, Jamie? Since you always ask me if I want to join you going to the strip club, which I don't know where that question comes from, but were you there at the strip club and you're just now getting to shoot the gap? Either way, no judgment. It's a judgment-free zone. We don't do any judgments here, Fantasy and Frames. We just have fun with it. Let's see. What is it?
Oh, there you go.
He's like, I'm trying to sneak into the playoffs for the Shoot the Gap podcast listener league. So I'm going to brag because I can and I have the microphone, so why not? But I definitely shouldn't brag, but I'm going to brag regardless because in the Shoot the Gap podcast listener league, I am ranked number 1. Shocker. Oh, shocker there. But we got some great teams here.
Get it done, boss.
Got to represent, right? But we got a lot of great teams here, a lot of great analysts, a lot of great fans. Just if you chose to be in the listener league for Shoot the Gap this year, you were in for a treat because you were having the customization and scoring was probably unlike anything you ever seen before. Defenses, defense special teams were getting like 100 points sometimes. Your line, you got bonuses for different plays. Like I really tried to make the Shoot the Gap listener league be as different as possible because we have enough leagues where we have our standard way of doing things. We wanted to make this a little bit more fun and entertaining. So definitely thank you very much everybody who's joining. And again, playoffs start not this week but the week after. Jamie back in the chat. I used to take you guys with me.
We were with him. He took us. He was listening to us on our episodes, listening when he was at the bar and at the club. So, Jorge, we were right there with you, Jamie. I had a blast.
Oh, hey,
I don't know about you. I don't know about you, but I had a blast at the club while Jamie was listening to our episode. It's fantastic.
I was at the bar and I was in the back at the buffet because we all know that the best buffets are at strip clubs. But I digress.
I had a cousin. I kid you not. Every Sunday, he lived in Boulder, Colorado. He would go to the strip club every Sunday because they had a ridiculously good buffet, and it was super cheap. I was like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Dude, it's like the best buffet, and it's like $10. It was like $10 or $15. It had like legit like steak and stuff on there. He's like, it's good." And they had the ticket, so they had all the games. He would just go in there and just hang out. I was like, this is amazing. He's like, this is like the cheapest, best place to watch games in all of Boulder. I was like, that is wild. It's so funny.
I mean, folks, never judge a book by its cover, I think is what we learned. And speaking of the defensive back plays, never judge a defensive back by its cornerback designation. You never know when that can come in and help you. All right, JT, since you're more studious than I was tonight, why don't you give the people 2 defensive back fades?
I will. And before I do that, Jamie said we helped him pick up some hot chicks at the bar for us shouting them out on the show. So you're welcome, Jamie. You're welcome. Me and Jorge helping you out there, getting the ladies. We appreciate you. You bring us along. So jumping into my play, my fades.
I have no idea what you're talking about. Yeah.
He's like, what's going on here? My first fade is going to be Rayshon Jenkins from the Seahawks. He's come back for injury. He'd been playing well this year. We expected him to kind of just jump right back in that starting role. Hasn't happened. He returned, got about 50% snap share. The week he came back, it dropped to 40% this last week as Kobe Bryant took a bunch of his snaps. It looks like there's a chance that Jenkins is just not going to get back that full share as we were hoping. If that's the case, you don't want him in your lineup. So Jenkins for now, unless something changes in the near future, I am sitting Jenkins the rest of the way. And then my other fade for this week is going to be DeMar Hamlin for the Bills. So we talked about Hamlin being one of our picks, one of our plays earlier this year. He's been pretty solid. He's had a good year, and he had been nice and someone that I've been playing pretty consistently the last few weeks, but his production has really slipped the last couple weeks. It's nothing crazy bad, but it hasn't been anything to write home about. His last couple games, he had 5 tackles against San Francisco, which was by far his best game. 5 solos, 2 tackles, 2 assists the week before, 2 tackles, 2 assists the week before. He did have a 10 tackle game against Miami, but then again, another 4 tackle game, another 3 tackle game before that. So he had some really, really nice games where he was getting you 7, 8, 9, 10 tackles, getting you an interception one week, couple passes defended. The last couple of weeks, it's just dropped a little bit. I mean, you're getting 4 tackles, maybe 5 tackles from him. Quite a few of them are assists. So not that I'm against Hamlin. If you have to play him, I can understand that. But he's a guy that, for me, has just dropped a bit the last couple weeks after I was, pushing hard to start him for about 3-4 weeks there in a row. But his production has just dropped just a bit here the last couple of weeks.
So that's going to wrap us up on IDP plays and fades for this week. Again, if you need more advice, need more players to pick and choose from, or maybe to fade this week, JT's IDP plays and fades article over at fantasyandframes.com either tomorrow or Friday. For those of you now wondering, why do we release our plays and fades articles so late in the week? It's because we want to get you the most up-to-date practice information. There's no point in us telling you play X player on Wednesday when Thursday they're then ruled out for the week. Like, no, we want to get you the most up-to-date information to be helpful for you. Will is in the Will, okay, guys, don't you know that every single lady at the strip club loves you? I don't care about that. I want to make sure that the cook loves me so I don't get salmonella poisoning or whatever it is you can get from, mad cow disease or something for the steak. Like, that's who I care about at the strip club. Thank you very much. But I digress. We got John Than _ love that, by the way. Start to Pratt, Dodson, Hendrickson. You had me at the last two, Dodson and Trey Hendrickson. Dodson, I will say, if Anthony Walker is not playing, which I don't think he will be. So definitely Dodson and Hendrickson for me this week. What about you?
Yeah, that one's a tough one because Pratt is a guy I like a lot this week. Logan Wilson out last week. Pratt has been a tackle machine. I think he had 13 last week. Now, a lot of those were assisted tackles, but still 13 tackles is 13 tackles. Man, this is a toughie because I think those are 3 really good plays. Hey, that's a good thing, is at least you're looking at it, you're like, hey, those are 3 solid plays, as opposed to going like, oh, like which one of these guys is going to suck the least. I think all those are good plays. To me, this comes down to your scoring system. It comes down to scoring system. If you're a tackle heavy league, I want Pratt and Dodson. I want Pratt and Dodson. If you're getting a bunch of points for sacks, Trey Hendrickson sack fumble possibility is a good one this week. So if you can get really good points for sack fumbles, I would lean Hendrickson as far as like upside, high side for scoring if he does that. But again, if you're going for floor and you have a really nice tackle floor, I want to do Pratt, Dodson as far as tackle safe plays. Those are the safer plays for me. Hendrickson is the boomer bust guy. Hendrickson is the boomer bust guy for me this week in that scenario.
So thank you very much, Jonathan, for the question. Again, if any of you all have more questions, please throw them in here. And if we don't get to them during the show, at Jorge B. Edwards, at JT Orange, at Fantasy and Frames, we are here to help you out. Jamie, I'll meet you at the buffet. That's where the real ladies hang. Shut up. I don't even want to. I should not have thrown that up on the screen. Just
now we're gonna now I want to eat at the buffet. I'm hungry. I want to get some steak. I want some tacos. Give me some pizza. Hook me up here. I'm getting hungry now.
Let me ask you a question, and you tell me whether or not I'm being too bougie or not. But I call up all of my local friends and I ask them, hey, do you want to go to like a Brazilian steakhouse where I know the prices are going to be jacked up, but I don't care. I have this huge craving for like, filet or some like higher cut of steak. I don't know why I have this craving for it, but I want it so badly. And when I say, hey, you guys want to get some food? Everybody's like, yeah, let's get some food. And then I bring up the whole Brazilian steakhouse thing and they're like, whoa, easy, Miss Daddy Warbucks. We don't want to break the bank. Am I bougie? Or do I just,
I will tell you this, Jorge, you're asking the wrong guy. If I'm spending money on anything, it's food and drinks. Like that is my go-to. If I'm going anywhere, people laugh, people come visit, they ask me about different cities I live in, and the first thing I bring up is like every awesome bar and restaurant. They're like, "Oh, is there other stuff?" I'm like, "Oh, I guess there's other stuff to do, but I mean, you go
They're
to
money.
bars and restaurants, you can eat it." I'm absolutely about good food. You tell me, "Hey, we're going to Fogo de Chao or one of the other Brazilian steakhouses." I'm like, sign me up, tell me when and where. I'm in. Those places are phenomenal. I'll spend the extra money, man. I will do it when it comes to food and drink. You give me that in a nice place with a good old fashioned, high good in cocktails, sold.
Yeah, Jamie's like, and the steakhouse give you unlimited food. Yes,
Oh,
willpower.
the Brazilians. Dude, you'll get the meat sweats. I'm telling you, you'll
Yeah,
eat so much, you'll just
yeah,
be sweating, and you're like, "What's going on?" And you're like, I know I should stop, but I can't. You're like, I just can't because
yeah.
it's so freaking good. They pull out the steak on the thing and they're just like slicing it
Yes,
right off, like right on your
yes.
plate. Oh, so good. So
And
good.
I'll get a couple bottles of red wine. Like I'm all about it. Will's in the chat. We're all hungry now. Another definition of being hoarded. You're welcome.
It's
Uh,
because they know I'm starving. I was like, man, I want to eat. So there's like so much. I was like, I gotta find. So I bet you I don't have anything good in my fridge either. I gotta go look. Probably gonna have to go find some leftovers in there.
Yeah, I'm Uber Eats late night menu. What do you got for me? But I will say one of the things I do not like about Brazilian steakhouses is like they 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 fill you up on like the lesser cuts, and then they're like, okay, you've been here for like an hour. What more could you want? I'm like, it says here you have bacon wrapped filet or beef ribs. Like, circulate that shit around. Like you don't
Oh,
just fill.
absolutely. They don't cut us out on the beef rib. Oh, come on. That's the best part.
Exactly. Will you crack me up? I guess I can kiss all my sandwich meat in my fridge goodbye now.
I tell you what, Will, I'm gonna probably end up having to go make myself a sandwich with some random whatever turkey or meat I can find in there after this show. I can guarantee it.
You all are welcome for being Jorge on this Wednesday evening. But let's wrap things up because I still got half of Rachel's question to answer. Rachel, if you're still tuning in, thank you. Let's get into some sack lunch, shall we? No, lesser cuts. You know what I mean by lesser cuts. Ooh, what does Will say? Grilled ham and cheese or turkey leftover? I'm a ham and cheese person. You give me a grilled cheese, anything, I'm all about that.
Grilled ham and cheese sounds fantastic. I got turkey. I'm probably gonna make myself up a turkey sandwich here. I got some leftover smoked turkey from the restaurant that we made up, so I'm probably gonna make a smoked turkey sandwich after the show.
Yeah, we had smoked turkey for the first time last week. Like this is so convenient. I just need to warm it up for a few hours and not have to do any of the brining or seasoning myself. It's all good to go.
That's the way to do it.
But I digress. Let's get into, as we do every week on our Sacked Lunch segment, we will talk about one player that we believe will get you a sack. And you and I, we're going to have to go back and listen to all of our episodes.
I was gonna say, I don't think we've been doing a good job of keeping track of who.
Yeah,
I was trying to think like who have I said and who I've not, because we're not supposed to use multiple times. I'm like, man, who have I already said and who haven't I?
So the gist of it is that whoever got the most, plays right for the season would take a pie to the face, but we don't actually remember who we chose. So we're going to have to go back and listen, but just stay tuned. But for right now, Rachel, let me stop beating around the bush and get to answering your question. I said Cam Taylor-Britt is one option off your waiver wire. I'm going to tell you Carl Granderson is the next one you want to get. Carl Granderson over the past month leads the Saints in total pressures, leads with 10, leads the Saints in sacks, leads the Saints in quarterback hits, just is your most productive pass rusher. And you just happen to be going against Evan Neal, who, is giving up 8 pressures over the past 4 weeks, 2 sacks, 4 quarterback hits. Just the ungood of ungoods. This offense, the Giants are just going downhill fast. They're playing for 1 through 4, and I'm talking about NFL draft picks. The offensive line is not good, and Carl Granderson, he's been my guy for years, and this year has been rather disappointing. But not this week. Carl Granderson should definitely get you a sack. So and definitely have a little bit of a tackle for going against the New York Giants. So Rachel, Cam Taylor, Britt, Carl Granderson would be my recommendation, and Carl Granderson is my play for sack lunch. JT, who's yours?
So there's a couple guys out there I like, but again, I can't remember who I used and I didn't use. So I just went with my guy Cam Hayward since I talked about him earlier. I think he gets home this week. He's been really good lately. He's his snap share is down a bit, but what they're doing is they're actually using him more on pass rush downs than they have in the past. They've got a couple of the younger guys in there playing them a few of the earlier downs against some run stops, and he's been getting 71% of the snap share on passing downs, which is great. He also has a pass rush grade up over 70, pressure rate up over 15. Like I said, he's just been a guy that kind of has been forgotten because he's kind of that old veteran, wily veteran, but he has looked really solid. I'm a Steelers fan. I've watched all their games. He has been getting a ton of push and pressure, and that's why I'm saying those passes defensed. He's been really good because he's been getting all the way back in and then getting his hands up. I think he gets home this week. I think Winston is going to throw the ball a million times this week, and I think he's going to have a chance at a lot of pass rushing downs. And the O-line has not been fantastic for the Browns, and also Jameis has held onto the ball a lot. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities for Steelers defenders to get sacks this week. I've already said Herbig. I've already used TJ, so I knew those were off my list. So Cam Hayward is my guy this week. I think he's going to get a sack. I love to see the wide veteran get in there. He absolutely hates the Browns. This is a team he goes hard against, and so I think he is a great play this week.
So for those that are in the YouTube chat, for those who, I apologize for the lewdness of some comments that are being.
I just saw those.
So apologies for that.
This is why we're the late night show, just in case. It's not for the faint of heart of the children. This is the R-rated late night show here on Fantasy and Frames.
So we care about we obviously care about making sure we keep it as classy as possible. For people who just don't give a tune into the Fantasy and Frames Waiver Wire show every single Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Stacy Perez, Erica, Kevin, Keith, Richard, just not only do they give you great waiver wire information, I guarantee you will leave each and every show crying from laughter. Just a great show. Listen to all of our shows. Fourth and Frames comes before us. We got Dynasty 365 coming back next week. We got the Daily Fix show, our DFS show on Friday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern. And of course, we got the Fantasy and Frames Fantasy Football Kickoff show every Sunday. Definitely tune in. We got Fantasy and Frames just everywhere. And again, we understand the importance. And first of all, for those of you who've been, hanging with us all season long, thank you. All year long, thank you. It's crazy to think that we're getting close to the end here, JT. And every year it's another year. This is the 8th year. We'll be starting the 8th year of Fantasy and Frames this January. It's just crazy and super appreciative. But we're not done yet. We're not done yet. And you're not done yet. We're here to help you get those titles and finish the season strong and have a great time playing fantasy football. And for this show's case, IDP Fantasy Football. So before we get going for tonight, JT, anything you want to tell the people? Whether what you're working on or just in general, just
let's make some playoffs, right? Let's make some playoff pushes here. I got started slow in a bunch of leagues. I started a lot of 1-5, 1-6, 0-6 leagues that I am just racing to the finish to try to make the playoffs. So, keep the faith. Keep putting lineups in there. Keep fighting. I've got a couple leagues where I'm right on the edge there. I've been piling up points the last couple weeks, won 6, 7, couple median leagues where I've won 12 in a row, trying to get back into the mix. So just keep fighting, keep setting those lineups, and hopefully some good things will happen. I've got a couple leagues that I'm definitely going to miss the playoffs. So keep trading, keep moving some guys, get some guys that are on IR for other teams. Get them back in your lineup, make moves, and hopefully win your toilet bowl and get an extra pick. So I've got a couple leagues trying to position myself in order to win those, get extra picks. Jamie just pulled up. He said something about SFB 14 playoffs. He says he's 174. Awesome, Jamie. That's freaking great. I made the playoffs. I had 4 different guys I could have started in one spot. All I need to do is start one of them different. Last second, I took Matt Gay and put him in for Aubrey after they had the terrible game the week before Dallas. Aubrey outscored him by 17. I ended up missing the cut for the second round by 1.6 points, I think it was. And then, of course, my team absolutely blew up this week after I got knocked out. So I would have easily made the next round of the Scott Fish Bowl playoffs. I'm pretty upset about that, that I got knocked out. But congratulations to you, Jamie. 174. That's nice. That's a good spot, man. Bring it home.
Not to humble brag or anything on behalf of Fantasy and Frames, but our own Keith Fleming, third in Scott Fish Bowl right now.
I didn't see Keith was that high. I knew he was up there. That's awesome.
Him and Kevin Tompkins have been crushing it, so definitely kudos to them. Will, you brought up something very important here. They do a great job. They do not handle IDP. They read the script you guys provide. How'd you know? How did you know we provide a script? First of all, if you need IDP waiver wire information, Tuesdays, the godfather of IDP, Gary Davenport, who we've been lucky to have with us here at Fantasy and Frames and hope to have him going forward, for years to come, puts out a great IDP waiver wire article. Go over to fantasyandframes.com, check it out. If you want IDP rankings, weekly rankings, we'll be getting back in the Dynasty rankings soon. Head over to fantasyandframes.com, check out our rankings. Hit us up, let us know, interact with us. This is what we're here for. We're here for the interaction. We're here to have some fun, and we're here to help. I will be on the waiver wire show going forward, especially during the playoffs, to answer some IDP questions. So if you have some IDP questions, Tuesdays starting at 8 p.m. Eastern to 9:30 p.m. Eastern, look forward to that. But yeah, again, look forward to the Plays and Fades articles, one from Drew Scott at DrewTheMR, as well as IDP Plays and Fades from JT. You can find JT at JT Orange. You can find me at Jorge B. Edwards. I'll see you all. Maybe we can talk JT into making it if he doesn't have a Colts game this weekend. Do you have a Colts game?
On the road. I think I can. The Colts are on bye, so I'm in. I'm in for the show this week. So last week I meant to jump on the show. Like I said, I got sick from my girlfriend's daughter. Got me sick, and I slept through my alarm. I barely woke up in time to get to my lineups. I woke up as 10 minutes before the games were starting. My girlfriend came in and woke me up. She's like, "Hey, would you want to get up? Games are almost started." I'm like, "What? You let me?" I was out cold. I never sleep through my alarm. I wake up 2 seconds. I was done. So I missed the show. I missed everything else. I barely got lineups in. It was a mess. I'm in this week. I'll be on the show this week.
So you'll definitely see us. And then Colby Conway from Fantasy Frames / Fantasy Alarm. He'll be with us as well. Keith Fleming with us. Nate Markham will not be with us. He will be in Jamaica. You lucky son of a gun. Congratulations. You deserve the vacation. One more thing from Will in the chat. I will be way more active next year when it comes to fantasy football in these chats. Just had to handle the sale of my house and purchase of a new home. Congratulations.
That's awesome. Congrats, man. It's a big move. I moved about 4 or 5 years ago, and I was like, I think this is the last house I'm ever going to live in. I don't think I'm ever moving again. I hate moving. It's the worst thing. I moved every 2 years for 10 years, and I'm just over. I'm I'm never moving again. So it took me forever to unbox all the boxes. I just get everything put away. I'm shoving everything in corners. So that's awesome for you, Will. Nothing better than moving to a new house, man. That's great.
And, we were, in the Fantasy and Frames, Slack chat, all the members of the Fantasy and Frames family, we just kind of dropped the news today of our podcast and show plans for 2025. Really excited what we can bring you. A lot of, individualized show, individualized podcasts, lot of stuff coming your way for Fantasy and Frames. We're going to do the Women's Charity League in March. We're going to do all of our show listener leagues again. We're going to do a lot. We're going to have a lot coming with you, but we're not done. We still got 2024 to deal with. We got the 2024 fantasy football season to deal with. We got some championships for you to win. So for JT, I'm Jorge. Thank you all very much for tuning in to Shoot the Gap, and we'll see you next week.